where all the surahs, one way or another, are paired up. And so the pair to this surah is actually Surah An-Naba. Amma yatasa'alun is the pair of this surah. Okay? So let's begin there, about the placement in the Quran. So I'm telling you, this is, just to give you where the pair started: Muzammil, Muddathir, Qiyama, Insan, and then Al-Mursalat and An-Naba. Now, An-Naba, of course, I think many of you may be familiar. Amma yatasa'alun an An-Naba al-Azim. It's the beginning of the final juz of the Quran, right? So this is the last of the 29th juz, and that's the beginning of the 30th juz of the Quran. For those of you who don't know, the juz in the Quran is not a division from the Prophet ﷺ. It's not a division from Islam itself. It is a later ijtihad. It has nothing to do with the revelation. Maybe it's there to make it convenient so you can go through the whole Quran once a month. Right? That's kind of the idea. So it's kind of an ijtihadi thing, but it's not part of the revelation of the Quran itself. Okay. The revealed division of the Quran is surahs, not ajza. Okay? Now, let's talk about how these two are paired. So I'm going to talk to you about Naba, and this is your first and probably only homework assignment. Maybe I'm lying. But I'm going to tell you some things about Surah An-Naba, and you're going to find the answer to these. I'm going to ask you about this tomorrow in Surah Mursalat. Some of these I'll answer now, some of these I won't. Okay, so, and if you want, you can take a picture of this one. This one I'll allow. This one's halal. Okay? In Surah An-Naba, Allah will talk about Jannah in detail. He'll go in quite some detail about Jannah. And in Surah Al-Mursalat, the one we're about to study, he'll talk about punishment way more, and he'll only talk about Jannah very briefly. So this one has less Jannah, more punishment. The next surah has less punishment, more Jannah. So they balance each other out. There's an equilibrium that's created. Okay. This Surah An-Naba starts with a question. What's the question? Anybody know? Amma yatasa'alun. What are they asking each other about? Are they asking each other about the great news? They're asking each other. Sarcastically, they're asking each other. So it starts with a question. What's really cool is Surah Al-Mursalat ends with a question. فَبِأَيِّ حَدِيثٍ بَعْدَهُ يُؤْمِنُونَ? What speech will they believe in after this? So one ends with a question, and the next one starts with a question. They're kind of linked together stylistically. Now this is your homework assignment. You have these questions in Surah An-Naba. أَلَمْ نَجْعَلِ الْأَرْضَ مِهَادًا وَالْجِبَالَ أَوْتَادًا وَخَلَقْنَاكُمْ أَزْوَاجًا وَجَعَلْنَا. How did it begin? أَلَمْ نَجْعَلْ. See if you find something like that in Surah Al-Mursalat. That's your first question. See if there's something that connects this to what's happening in Surah Al-Mursalat. Then Allah mentions Inna yawm al-fasli kana miqata. There are two things here, two interesting things. The word fasl, yawm al-fasl, is used in the Quran, or the word fasl in this way is used in the Quran only 5 times. I want you to find the other 4 times. One of them is Surah An-Naba. I'm giving you that one. Inna yawm al-fasli kana miqata. Find the other 4. Okay, let's see where they are. Then there's the word miqat. The day of separation has been scheduled. It's always been miqata. It's been scheduled. Okay? See if you can find something in Surah Al-Mursalat about a schedule. See if that is something being echoed. Let's look at وَفُتِحَتِ السَّمَاء. The sky shall be opened. Again, Surah An-Naba. Let's see if there's something like that in Surah Al-Mursalat that's being echoed. وَسُيِّرَتِ الْجِبَالِ. The mountains will be made to move. Something about the sky, something about the mountains, something about the earth. أَلَمْ نَجْعَلِ الْأَرْضَ مِهَادًا. So sky, mountain, earth. Let's see if we find sky, mountain, and earth in Surah Al-Mursalat. And of course, وَأَنزَلْنَا مِنَ الْمُعْصِرَاتِ مَاءً ثَجَّاجًا. He sent water from the sky that overpours. Let's see if we find water in Surah Al-Mursalat. لَا يَتَكَلَّمُونَ إِلَّا مَنْ أَذِنَ لَهُ الرَّحْمَنُ. Nobody will speak on Judgment Day except if Ar-Rahman gives permission. See if you find anything like that in Surah Al-Mursalat, where nobody can speak. لَا يَتَكَلَّمُونَ إِلَّا مَنْ أَذِنَ لَهُ الرَّحْمَنُ. And finally, إِنَّ جَهَنَّمَ كَانَتْ مِرْصَادًا. This one I will help you. Mirsad in Arabic is a place where you sit waiting to attack someone. Do you guys have I don't know if you have this in France. We have this in America. We have these the highway. There's a bridge over the highway. You're going under the bridge, yeah, and the cop is hiding on the side of the bridge, so you don't see him. So you have no taqwa when you're driving, and you go over the speed limit. Then he comes out, and he gets you for speeding. Because if he was out, you would slow down well in advance. You would see, the indar, and you would have taqwa, and you would slow down. But he hides himself, and then he comes out. So when he's hiding, waiting to get you, he's in a mirsad. That's his mirsad. You guys have that here? MashaAllah. One more thing to love this country about. Anyway, so okay. So that's mirsad. Allah says, Jahannam has itself been waiting to, it's waiting. But when something is waiting, then it's not coming to you, you are coming to it. It's not hunting you, it's waiting for you to show up, isn't it? So it's standing in place ready to attack. In Surah Mursalat, Allah will say, Intaliqu. Go. Go, march. Go towards what? إلى ظل ذي ثلاث شعب لا ظليل ولا يغني من اللهب إنها ترمي بشرر كالقصر كأنه جمالة صفر. You're being pushed, marched towards Jahannam. So in that surah, you are being marched towards Jahannam. And you're not there yet. You're just being marched towards it. There's no description of what is happening inside Jahannam to you. Not yet. It's just go. The march to hell is being described in Surah Al-Mursalat. In Surah, I know it's scary. In Surah Al-Mursalat, or in Surah Al-Naba, what's Jahannam doing while you're coming? Or not me, Allah protect yourself. When the kafir is coming, what's Jahannam doing? Waiting. Oh, he's getting closer, he's getting closer. Inna Jahannama kanat mirsada. The camera angle was behind the kuffar pushing them in Surah Al-Mursalat, and the camera angle is from the side of Jahannam in Surah Al-Naba. You see how they complement each other? Subhanallah. And so this and other remarkable connections bind these surahs together. And what happens when surahs are twins or pairs, usually you see one side of something and then you see the other side of it. You see one dimension, you see the other dimension, like two sides of a coin. Then you get the full picture. And that's the wisdom many times of surahs being in pairs, right? They highlight some things, they reinforce some things, and they highlight the other dimension and angle of some things together. Okay. Now, a couple of complicated things to discuss with you. My schedule is going to be, I think 8:30 is Maghrib, if I'm not mistaken. 8:30 or so. So I'm going to speak to you until I see enough of you fall into a coma, and then I'll give you your first break. But hopefully we can make as much use of the first 90 minutes as possible. Then Maghrib Salah, and then after Maghrib, one more session until Isha. Isha is 9:40. So one more session, and it'll be 2 sessions, sometimes 3, depending on if, again, enough of you are traveling to the unseen. So then I will give a break. But for now, you seem to be holding yourselves well, so I'm proud. Okay. So surahs have echoes. You remember what I talked about in music, there's a chorus, something is repeated, right? So there are these surahs in the Quran, like Surah Al-Rahman, 31 times. What's the phrase that's repeated? فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ in Al-Mursalat, that's the next most chorus-like surah, which has this وَيْلٌ يَوْمَئِذٍ لِلْمُكَذِّبِينَ 10 times over. In Ash-Shu'ara, it's not just one ayah, it's actually a couple of ayat together. إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَآيَةً وَمَا كَانَ أَكْثَرُهُم مُؤْمِنِينَ وَإِنَّ رَبَّكَ لَهُوَ الْعَزِيزُ الرَّحِيمُ is repeated 7 times over. And then the final one is Surah Al-Qamar, where you find وَلَقَدْ يَسَّرْنَا الْقُرْآنَ لِلذِّكْرِ فَهَلْ مِن مُدَّكِرٍ echoed 4 times over. Right? So these are the surahs that have some repetition. I give these things, I don't go into too much detail, because actually, eventually, I'm hoping, some of you become very serious Quran students, and some of you say, hey, I want to look more deeply into what is unique about these 4 surahs, that Allah decided to put echoes in these surahs, and maybe there's something that connects them together, that brings them together, because they have this common element among them, right? And every one of those kinds of explorations opens up new doors of wisdom. Right? But I'm not capable of doing all of that, but at least I can drop the nuggets, and maybe some of you can take that up and do something with it, inshallah ta'ala. Okay. Now, this is it says echoes of surahs, but it's something else. وَالْمُرْسَلَاتِ عُرْفًا فَالْعَاصِفَاتِ عَصْفًا وَالنَّاشِرَاتِ نَشْرًا فالفارقات فرقا فالملقيات ذكرا عذرا أو نذرا. Okay. والصافات صفا فالزاجرات زجرا فالتاليات ذكرا. You hear something similar? والذاريات ذروا فالحاملات وقرا فالجاريات يسرا فالمقسمات أمرا. Something similar again? Then والنازعات غرقا والناشطات نشطا والسابحات سبحا فالسابقات سبقا فالمدبرات أمرا. Again. And finally, this one you guys should know this one. والعاديات ضبحا فالموريات قدحا فالمغيرات صبحا فأثرن به نقعا فوسطن به جمعا. These are the 5 surahs that have very similar style openings. Each of these openings, I'll tell you a few things about them. First, let's step back and talk about what these openings are. These openings are oaths. Oaths. Qasam. When you swear by something. Okay? And they are very similar kinds of oaths. There are other surahs that have different kinds of oaths, like wal asr, wal teen, wal fajr, etc. But these are very similar to each other. You can tell all of them have that ati, followed by some kind of hal, tamyiz, or maf'ul. So وَالذَّارِيَاتِ ذَرْوَةً وَالصَّافَّاتِ صَفًّا وَالْمُرْسَلَاتِ عُرْفًا, etc., etc. Okay? Now, there are 5 of these surahs. I've put them in the order of the Quran here. This is in the order of the Quran. A couple of important concepts that I want you to be aware of. I know I'm offloading a lot to you. I was thinking today about, even talking. I haven't spoken to my team for 2 days because I was thinking about how to teach you this stuff today. Because there's too much stuff in the beginning, and I don't want you to lose any of it. Because this is all important things in your future studies of Quran, inshallah, for yourself, when you're even doing your own reading. So just let's take note of a couple of things at a time. Let's slow down and think through this. The first thing I want you to know is there are 2 kinds of speech according to the scholars of balagha. And that's, we don't have to get technical, but basically there's khabar and insha. What that basically means is there's speech, at the end of it you can say yes or no, true or false. And there's other speech where you cannot say true or false. Okay? Let me give you an example. The weather is nice. Is that true or false, or is that something you cannot respond to? Yeah, you can say true or false. Okay? When I say, I swear to God. I swear to God. And somebody says false. You can't say true or false to that because that's not one of those questions that fits true or false. You understand? If I say, for example, what's a good example? Okay, if I tell my son, don't touch that. Don't touch that. And he says, true. Not exactly. Doesn't work. It's not a statement that requires negation or affirmation. There are statements, another way to think about this is there are statements that are designed to bring about an emotion. And other statements are designed to communicate an idea. So emotion speech, information speech. Easy division. Emotion speech and information speech. Oaths, I swear by this, I swear by this, I swear by this, I swear by this, I swear by this. Is that information speech or is that emotion speech? That's emotion speech. That's emotional speech. That's insha. This is one of the forms of insha. And we're going to see multiple forms of insha in Surah Al-Mursalat. Actually, multiple insha techniques are going to be used in Surah Al-Mursalat. And it will be mixed with khabar. It will be mixed with information. But right now, we're just talking about emotional speech. Now, a quick comment, because I've talked about this so many times, but a quick comment is necessary about oaths, about the qasam. The ancient Arabs understood that the qasam, the oath, the purpose of it is to get your attention to something they're going to say after that. The oath is not the goal. The oath is just their advertising, clickbait, meme. That's to get you to sign up. Okay? So their marketing strategy is the qasam. The product is the jawabul qasam. It's what's coming afterwards. Okay? But the qasam should prepare you for the product, for the result. So the idea of the oath is that it gets you ready, starts getting you thinking, and by the time you get to the jawabul qasam, the answer to the oath, then you could see, oh, they were connected. Oh, that's how they were connected. So easiest example, to start off with. Wal asri. What's coming after that? Innal insana lafi khusr. I don't just say wal asr. I swear by time. Assalamu alaikum. Okay. When I say I swear by time, I'm like, what? You swear? What? Tell me what? Like I said just a few minutes ago, I said, I swear to God. You're expecting something. You're expecting me to say something. I swear to God, what? What? Tell me what? When somebody takes an oath, they're getting somebody ready for what's coming next. But the Arabs had this interesting technique, and the Quran took it to the next level. When Allah swears by something, He's actually getting you ready to accept what's coming. In the oath itself, there's evidence for what He's going to say next. So it actually becomes evidence for the Jawab al-Qasam. That's what Allah does in the Quran. So what we're going to see in Wal Mursalati Urfa, Fal Asifati Asfa, these ayat, these will become evidence for one statement, Innama tu'aduna lawaqi'. They will become evidence for it. Okay? So 5 places in the Quran, Allah uses this technique. But 2 of them, interestingly, 2 of them. The first one was Saffati Saffa, Fazajirati Zajra, Fattaliyati Dhikra. This one. And the last one, وَالْعَادِيَاتِ ضَبْحًا فَالْمُورِيَاتِ قَدْحًا فَالْمُغِيرَاتِ صُبْحًا فَأَثَرْنَ بِهِ نَقْعًا فَوَسَطْنَ بِهِ جَمْعًا. In these 2, the statement at the end, the Jawab al-Qasam, is about Allah. The Jawab al-Qasam is about Allah. So the first one is about Allah, and the last one is also about Allah. And the middle 3 are about the Day of Judgment. So Allah in the top, Allah at the bottom, and the middle 3 are, the Jawab al-Qasam is about the Day of Judgment. So it's a strange organization here. I'll eventually, when I'm finished with my study of all of these surahs, there's only, actually this is the last, the Safat is left. After Safat is done, then I'll do an analysis of all 5 and compare them to each other. This will be the 4th one of these that I've completed. But anyway, we'll wait until then. But there's something interesting that should still be observed about them. So the first one, As-Safat, ends with Allah. The last one, Innal insana li rabbihi lakanud, also about Allah, about the Rabb. But then when you look at Adh-Dhariyat, Allah says, Innama tu'aduna la sadiq wa inna ad-dina lawaqi'. There are 2 statements. What you have been promised is true, judgment is going to happen. 2 statements. So I put a 2x here. Okay? So that these oaths are followed by 2 conclusions. The surah we're studying takes 1 conclusion. So we're going to see these oaths, and at the end of it we'll see إِنَّمَا تُوعَدُونَ لَوَاقِعٌ. 1 conclusion. Then you get to Surah Al-Nazi'at. وَالنَّازِعَاتِ غَرْقًا وَالنَّاشِطَاتِ نَشْطًا وَالسَّابِحَاتِ سَبْحًا فَالسَّابِقَاتِ سَبْقًا فَالْمُدَبِّرَاتِ أَمْرًا. What's next? Anybody know? I didn't hear it yet. What's the next ayah? يَوْمَ تَرْجُفُ الرَّاجِفَةُ تَتْبَعُهَا الرَّادِفَةُ قُلُوبٌ يَوْمَئِذٍ وَاجِفَةٌ. There's no response. The statement that was coming is not mentioned. So now look, Adh-Dhariyat, how many statements were mentioned? 2. The following surah, Al-Mursalat, that similar style, how many statements were mentioned? 1. And by the time you get to An-Nazi'at, how many statements are mentioned? 0. Why? You should already know. You know. Where would you know from as a listener of Quran? Previous surahs. And if you're the first time listener, you'll start wondering, where was he going with that? He didn't say it. Sometimes you don't say something because it's all that obvious. Just on that note, it's not directly related, but it'll benefit you. You've heard La uqsimu biyawmil qiyamah, yeah? And there's a lot of conversation about La. Why is the La there? La uqsimu biyawmil qiyamah. Let me give you the easiest explanation. Let's say you have an exam tomorrow, okay? And you're not studying. And I say, I'm not going to tell you to study, okay? I'm not going to say that you should take this seriously. When I say that to you, what am I saying to you? Stupid, take it seriously. I'm not going to tell you to clean your room. Your mother says, I'm not going to tell you to clean your room. What is she saying? You want to live? That's what she's saying, right? Sometimes the no, depending on the tone of the person, is even stronger than the yes. Is even strong. I'm not even going to swear by Judgment Day. That actually means, oh, He wouldn't even, I better take it seriously without him even swearing. It's that serious. You understand? So there is here, oh, where's the Jawab al Qasam? I'm not even going to say it. You better figure it out. There's an expectation from the listener to rise to the occasion, to figure stuff out, to think. This is a book given to those who think. So that's what's happening in these remarkable oaths. So, and now the other interesting thing about these 5 surahs, it's almost agreed upon that As-Saffati Saffan, that surah, these oaths are related to the angels. Almost agreed upon. And there's even evidence to that in the surah itself. Later on, the angels will describe they're doing this action. So it's kind of obvious. Hard to refute that one. When you go to Surah Al-Adiyat, it's pretty obvious that this is referring to horses. وَالْعَادِيَةِ ضَبْحًا فَالْمُورِيَاتِ قَدْحًا. The sparks are flying, they're panting. Dabh is the panting of the horse. The language is about horses. Clear. So one is clearly about angels, the other is clearly about horses. So angels are being used as an evidence, horses are being used as an evidence, if you will, right? But then you find these middle ones. And these middle ones, there's lots of disagreement about, is this angels? Is this winds? Is this Quran? Is it horses? What is it? So the top one and the bottom one are clear. And the middle one, there's a lot of openness. The middle 3. So the ones about Allah, there's no discussion. And the ones about the Akhirah, the 3 are about the Akhirah, yeah? There are different opinions even among the Sahaba, early Mufassirin, and we're going to see some of that, inshallah, in a systematic way. Okay? All right. Okay, so now before I give you your first break, just some quick, interesting information things. This surah, the Sahaba used to call it Wal Mursalati Urfa. They didn't call it Surah Mursalat, they called it Wal Mursalati Urfa. This comes from a hadith narration. It also tells us that this is one of the very early surahs because بينما نحن مع رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم في غار بمنى. They were in the cave by Mina. The Sahaba were with the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم in the cave of Mina. إذا نزلت عليه سورة والمرسلات عرفا. When all of a sudden Surah والمرسلات عرفا was revealed to him. So this is early on. They're in hiding. They're in a cave. They're not out in the open. And they're away from the city a little bit. Right, away from the attention of the kuffar, and the surah starts getting revealed. فَإِنَّهُ لَيَتْلُوهَا وَإِنِّي لَأَتَلَقَّاهَا مِنْ فِيهِ. And he's reading it, and I'm trying to catch it from his mouth, meaning I'm trying to repeat after him and memorize it as soon as he's giving it. Right? This is Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. وَإِنَّ فَاهُ لَرَطْبٌ بِهَا. And his mouth is, moist with the surah. He's just reciting it. إِذَا خَرَجَتْ عَلَيْنَا حَيَّةً فوثبنا عليها لنقتلها فذهبت فقال النبي وقيتم شرها كما وقيت شركم. So all of a sudden a snake showed up. When he was reciting the surah, a snake showed up, and they tried to go kill it, and it just kind of disappeared. And the Prophet ﷺ said, you were saved from its evil, just like its harm, just like it was saved from your harm. So, but they remember this incident, the whole thing. But the point isn't the snake part. The point was Al-Mursalat is being described as having happened in the cave. So it's one of the very, very early surahs to be revealed in the Quran. Okay, and then of course in the Tafseer, it became commonly known as Al-Mursalat. Now you would think there's so much more Quran that was revealed afterwards, but there's another really beautiful hadith related to this surah, and this is narrated by Ibn Abbas radiallahu ta'ala anhu. قرأت سورة والمرسلات فسمعتني أم الفضل امرأة العباس. So Ibn Abbas was reciting Surah Al-Mursalat. And the wife of Abbas, she heard it, and she started crying, and she said, "Bunayya, أذكرتني بقراءتك هذه السورة إنها لآخر ما سمعت رسول صلى الله عليه وسلم يقرأ بها في صلاة المغرب." My child, are you reminding me of this surah with your recitation of this surah? It's the last surah I heard your Prophet recite صلى الله عليه وسلم in Maghrib Salah. So she had an emotional attachment to Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's praying behind the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and one of the last surahs he recited was actually Surah Mursalat in Maghrib, which is really amazing, isn't it? Because you're at the end of the seerah, and you would think you'd hear surahs about the Madani surahs, or you would hear about the victory surahs, or the promise of the future. But Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is reciting what? Al-Mursalat. He's ending the mission where the mission began. And this is itself a really amazing lesson for us, that doesn't matter how much ilm you get, how much you progress in your knowledge of Islam, the fundamentals, they're never, in any education, you take the 101 class and then you take the 102, 201, 202, 301, 3, and you keep progressing. At the end of it all, the most advanced lesson is still 101 in Islam. You never graduate from, you can advance, but you have to keep coming back. And it's not a review, it's actually the goal. It's a remarkable teaching of our deen, that the more we progress in our knowledge, the more we come back to the fundamentals. The more we come back to which is why the Quran, 2/3 of it is dedicated to Meccan surahs, right? The majority share of the Quran is Meccan. And you would think any believing reader of the Quran, as they read the Quran, the more they progress through the Quran, especially as they get to the end, they start reading the earlier surahs, right? So we're ending where it began. Isn't that interesting? It's like we're being told, always go back to the beginning, always go back to the beginning. Start over, start over, start over. That's the mentality of the Muslim and the relationship with the Quran. This is just about it being Meccan. So now, في القسم تشويق السامع لتلقي المقسم عليه. I'm going to give you your first break and to prepare you for what's coming, inshallah. We're going to discuss, I had 2 objectives. I think I'll be able to meet one of them. Let's see, inshallah. One of them is I want to expose you to a summary of all the discussion about these oaths, these particular oaths in our scholarship. It's a lot of stuff. We're going to try to synthesize it so you have a good idea of how these conversations used to be. And then if we can do a good job with that, the final session will be, what do we learn from it? So because those are 2 different things. You can read a lot of what the scholars said, and at the end of it, you'd say, then what? And a lot of times students, they study that stuff and they never get to the then what. But I need you to go through all of that material. And then we need to dedicate time to understanding then what? What do we get from it? What is the impact? And like I told you in my imagination, I want to be back in ancient Arabia listening to this for the first time. What is the effect on me after all of that scholarly discussion? An important preliminary discussion that I didn't have with you, I'll give it a brief note. The difference between tafsir and tadabbur, and the importance of going back to the language. This is a challenge because we believe Quran is timeless, right? Quran is relevant for all times. So why are you going back in time and sitting in the desert in your imagination if we're living in 2024? Fair question. And the answer to that is also very important for you to understand. I was giving the analogy, I'll share it with everybody. French is spoken in many parts of the world. The Canadians think they speak French. You guys also speak French, but is the French the same? If somebody was speaking in French, Canadian French, and you wanted to interpret it exactly as you understand it, is there a chance of misinterpretation? Yes, there is. Because even though it's the same language, the cultural development of the language was impacted by other elements. Arabic developed in Algeria, it developed in Tunisia. Is it the same between Algeria and Tunisia? Is Arabic the same between Egypt and the Khalij? Is Arabic the same between Sudan and some other parts of the Muslim world where Arabic is spoken? No, it's not. And Mauritania, they're not the same. Why? Because language does not exist in a dictionary. Language is a part of culture, is a part of life. As life changes, language also what? Changes. The Muslim world, the Arabs were in the desert, cut off from the world. Their language it worked a certain way. And all of their vocabulary, all of their thoughts, they had to do with the desert and the stars and the horse and the shield. And this is what they were talking about all the time. And then Islam expanded. Islam grew. And Islam became part of European civilization and Persian civilization and Indian civilization. It's just all these civilizations started getting connected to Islam, and Arabic spread also. And now all of a sudden in Iraq and other places, there's also poetry, shi'r. But the shi'r now is about gardens and waterfalls. Who's going to make shi'r about gardens in Khalij and in Hijaz? They ain't got no gardens to make songs about that. Right? So the culture changed and the vocabulary and the way we think about that vocabulary changed. Now here's the problem. The Quran is our timeless standard. That's what we believe. It's our timeless standard. But if the language, Arabic language, is constantly changing, and is it changing? As a matter of fact, it is. Then isn't it true that each group and each new experience of language will look at the Quran differently and get different conclusions? Now we don't, because the Quran is the same, but Arabic is changing. And as Arabic is changing, our interpretation is going to keep changing. The only way to solve that problem is something the earliest Muslims understood. Even the Sahaba recognized Arabic is changing. As Islam was expanding, they recognized Arabic was changing. So what did they do? They decided to preserve the Arabic of the desert in documentation. How did the Arabs use this word? How did they use that word? How did they use this in the desert? How did they use that in the desert? Why? Because the desert was the place where the Quran was revealed. So just like we have standard memorization of the Quran, standard pronunciation of the Quran, there had to be a standard meaning of the words of the Quran. And that had to be preserved, because if we didn't preserve it, as Islam spread, as multiple cultures came in, that same word could have had newer and newer and newer and newer meanings. And the old meaning could have completely changed. In fact, just think of English as an example. I give this example often, the word cool. 200 years ago, if somebody said, "This is so cool," they would be talking about temperature. But if I came to Lyon and I'm speaking to you guys and I said, "This is so cool," and somebody says, "No, it is sama." I wasn't talking about the temperature. I was talking about something else. The word cool changed its meaning, didn't it? Now, that only answers one part of the question. The standard, the Quran, if the Quran is the standard, the language of the Quran must be the language and the culture of the ancient Arabs. The reason culture is important is culture and language are connected. You cannot just study a language without studying the culture. They go hand in hand. Okay? Now, here's the next piece. After you understand the correct meaning, Hadid, this guy, take him for a walk. I can't hear, I'm getting distracted. I think he hears my voice, he gets excited is what the problem is. We have this connection. Anyway, so, yeah, see, okay. What was I saying? Something about Islam? Oh yeah, standards. I was telling you the difference between tafsir and tadabbur. Please understand this analogy carefully. There's news. There's news. Russia and Ukraine. Something in the news. Yeah? In order to understand the event, the first thing you need is accurate information. Yes or no? If you have a partial news bite, if you have a sound clip, or if you have a state propaganda, right? Or you have a hit piece or something else, then whatever thoughts you have are based on the wrong information to begin with. The first thing you need to get to the right conclusion is accurate information. The objective of tafsir, the objective of what? Tafsir is to deliver accurate information about the Quran. That's the objective. What exactly is this saying? Am I translating this correctly? Am I understanding this correctly? Now that you have the accurate information, that's not enough. Just because you know there was a conflict between Russia and Ukraine, does that mean you understand the economic impact, the political impact, the social impact, the immigration impact, the policy impact? You don't understand any of it. You just know this happened. You have the accurate information, but you don't have the analysis. So information is something else, analysis is something else. Now you cannot have good analysis until you have good what? Information. Tafsir makes sure you have the right information. What is tadabbur? Tadabbur is the act of engaging in analysis. Now we're going to analyze what Allah is saying and try to analyze what does this mean to me? What does this mean for the world? What questions rise from it? What questions does this answer? What problems does it solve? These are two separate things, tafsir and tadabbur. Now, here's the issue. There are people that are obsessed with tafsir. And they say, all I need is what? Tafsir. I've read the tafsir. I know that's really cute. But we live in this world. The mufassir was just making sure you understand something accurately. But he wasn't analyzing your situation, your reality, your world. He wasn't analyzing any of that. Because he can't. He lived in his time. After you understand the correct meaning, every believer is supposed to engage in the act of tadabbur. What's happened today is there are people that love tadabbur without doing justice to tafsir. And there are people that love tafsir without any concern for tadabbur. What I'm saying in this session is I'm going to give you some tafsir. And you're going to get frustrated because we're like, how does this apply to me? I don't even understand. Because we haven't done what yet? Tadabbur yet. But we will get there. But to get there, we first got to do what? Tafsir. You understand these two things together? Now, going back in time, understanding the ancient Arabs, understanding the language, all of that is part of the process of what? Tafsir. Now that we did our justice with that, now we're ready to do healthy tadabbur. Now we can look at how timeless and how wonderful and how applicable and how ahead of its time the Quran is, right? So now these oaths, let me give you a rough, very bad translation of these oaths. Wal mursalati urfa, I swear by the ones that have been released by the urf. Urf is, or whose urf has been released. I won't translate urf yet. فَالْعَاصِفَاتِ عَصْفًا, then they move quickly and violently, as quickly and violently as they can. I swear by them. وَالنَّاشِرَاتِ نَشْرًا, and they spread out and spread far and wide as possible. I swear by them. فَالْفَارِقَاتِ فَرْقًا, then they divide thoroughly. They divide and divide and divide. Now this all sounds ambiguous. It's not very. فَالْمُلْقِيَاتِ ذِكْرًا, then they drop or they place before you reminder. They place reminder. عُذْرًا أو نُذْرًا, a pardon or a warning. A pardon or a warning. That's a very ambiguous speech. What is it that has been released? What is it that's moving violently? What is it that's spreading around? What is it that's dividing? That was the question the Mufassirun were asking. Remember, they're trying to figure out, what does this mean? What's the accurate information? This table that you might see on the screen, I'm not going to go through it, but it's just there to show you all the different kinds of things people thought about these ayat mean. Basically divided into two major categories. Many people believe they're referring to winds. Others believe they were referring to angels. Some also believe this is referring to the Quran. Very few believe they're referring to clouds. I will add, it can also include horses. And we're going to discuss all of that. Okay? Winds, angels, horses. Those are the three contenders as far as I'm concerned. And Quran also. Now, let's first understand Wal Mursalati Urfa. What first letter did you hear? Wal Mursalati Urfa. Wow. Fal Asifati Asfa. What did you hear? First letter. Wa followed by Fa. Wan Nashirati Nashra. What did you hear again? Wa. Fal Fariqati Farqa. Fal Mulqiyati Dhikra Udran aw Nudra. What do you hear again? So you started with a waw, then you had a fa. Then you had a waw again, then fa, fa, fa. Right? That's what's happening. So the first discussion became in tafsir, why is there a wa, and then a fa, and then a wa, and then a fa? What's the wa basically means I swear by, and the second wa means and. Fa means then or so. Then or so, or it can even mean thereafter. Thereafter. Now, here's the basic overview. Instead of reading a bunch of things to you about wa and fa, I think I wrote it here. Yeah. Fa is for the same thing. And wa could be for the same thing or a different thing. Basically. This is the rule I want you to remember. Fa is for the same thing. He ate, then slept, then woke up, then left. Then. Same guy or different guy? Yeah, same guy. In English, actually, the then and are too similar. So he ate and slept and woke up and left. Same guy. But in Arabic, you can separate them. You can do a distinction between them. Okay? Now, so the fa means وَالْمُرْسَلَاتِ عُرْفًا فَالْعَاصِفَاتِ عَصْفًا is referring to the same, whatever it is, it's the same. It's one thing. And it's going through two experiences. The first experience is al-mursalati urfa. The second experience is fal-asifati asfa. Then one nashirati nashra fal-fariqati farqa could be a different thing. That could be a different thing. Okay? And then fal-mulqiyati, that's one group together. So the wa starts a new thing and fa is connected. The only problem is wa can also be referring to the same thing. So there's two groups. One group says all of these ayat is one thing. Because they're saying wow could also be for the same thing. So they're saying wal mursalati urfa fal asifati asfa wal nashirati nashra fal fariqati farqa. All of them are referring to one group, meaning all of this is about angels. or all of these are about winds, for example. That's what they're saying. Others are saying no, the first couple are about winds and the rest of them are about angels. So they're separating the two. Okay? So there's two kinds of tafseer you get. You get the tafseer that they're all the same or that they are two separate things, and these are the opinions that you find. Now, on this note that can wow refer to the same thing? Some people had a debate about that. Can you say wow is the same thing or not? And there's lots of examples of that in classical poetry. I'll give you one of the most offensive examples because it's entertaining. Hajjaj ibn Yusuf came to Iraq and he was appointed governor of Iraq. And the Iraqis had already had several civil unrest and they had already assassinated several governors already. So by the time Hajjaj, who was a butcher, and he was crazy. He was actually crazy as far as killing is concerned. He killed first, asked questions later, right? So he came and he gave them a speech. He came into the masjid, covered up, like he covered his face with a turban, walked in. This is about 100 years after the Prophet ﷺ, right? There's some Sahaba that were still alive, by the way. He actually killed some Sahaba too. It's crazy. Yeah, weird history. Anyway, so he's in Iraq. He goes up to the mimbar. He's wearing this turban thing. Everybody's sitting there and they're about to, because they're used to killing governors. So one guy even throws some pebbles at him just to poke at him. And he sits there quiet. He's not saying nothing. And then he finally and he was wearing his sword, bow and arrow, armed, sitting on the mimbar armed. Like imagine somebody coming in. Oh yeah, adhan time. 1 minute? Oh my God. Okay, I better tell you this quickly then. Anyway, so he took his turban off, and then he got up and he gave a speech and he threatened to kill everyone, basically. And part of what he said to them is with wow. That's why I brought it up. He says, "Inni wallahi ya ahl al-Iraq, wa ma'dan al-shiqaq, wa nifaq, wa masawi al-akhlaq." He goes, people of Iraq, the source of all the division, the source of hypocrisy, and the worst people of character. But he and is he referring to different people or same people? So the same people. So I thought I'd give you an entertaining example. All right, so it's adhan time. We'll stop here inshallah and discuss this later. Barakallahu li wa lakum. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, wa salatu wa salamu ala Sayyid al-Anbiya wal Mursaleen, wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in, amma ba'd, fa'a'udhu billahi min ash-shaytan ar-rajim, bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, wal Mursalati urfa, fal-'asifati 'asfa, wal Nashirati nashra, fal-fariqati farqa, fal-mulqiyati dhikra, 'udhran aw nudhra, innama tu'aduna lawaqi'. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wa hlul 'uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. We left off at the tafsir issues and the opinions about what these ayat could mean or what could they be referring to. There are basically two camps, like I was saying. Either all of them are referring to the same thing or they're referring to two different things. Those are basically the two camps. Imam Razi has done a good job of synthesizing that. This is a synthesis of his synthesis, so I've simplified it as much as possible. It's either all five are referring to the angels. And so let me explain what that means in brief language. He's saying that in the beginning Allah says, "Wal Mursalati urfa." This is a tashbih. And let me explain what that means. The word urf is the key word here. The word urf means a number of things. It could be related to the word ma'ruf, which means good. Right? That's one possible meaning of the word urf, good. The second meaning of the word urf is actually the urf is the horse, the hair on the back of the neck of the horse, or the hair on the back of the neck of any animal is actually called its urf. That's the second meaning of the word urf. Okay, urf can also actually mean a large group. A group of something, like a pack of animals, like a pack of hyenas, is actually called a urf of hyenas. They're urf, meaning when they attack, like wolves attack in a pack, that's a urf of them. So there are three meanings of the word urf, linguistically speaking. Good, that's one meaning. Good deeds, good teachings, etc. Like from ma'ruf, you're familiar with the word ma'ruf, right? The second is that it refers to the hair on the back of the horse, and the third is in packs. Now, all three, let's think about the angels. What would this mean? Well, mursalat. Now, let's go back to the word al-mursalat. Al-mursalat means the ones that have been released. Arsala in Arabic is atlaqa, to release something. Khalla, ahmala. Right? So when you let something go, then you're doing irsal of it. A camel that has been let go, like it can go wherever it wants. This is rusul in Arabic. Rusul, naqatun rusul. It can go wherever it wants. Okay. The irsal is also used for horses or race horses when you let them go. Now the image, I want you to understand the language being used is the language of animals. And the language of animals is being used allegorically, meaning figurative speech. So this isti'ara is very common in English. For example, he roared on the battlefield. Well, he didn't roar on the battlefield because he's not a lion, but you're comparing the soldier to a lion by using what word? Roared, right? Or he pounced on his enemies. Now using the word pounced, which is actually used for lions, but you're using it to describe his attack, right? So, or when two people are insulting each other and you say, man, he burned him. Well, using the word burn as in to set someone on fire, but you're using it to describe the manner in which he destroyed this person with his words, right? So this is the idea of isti'ara. You're borrowing a word from outside of its original meaning. The word mursalat urfa, if you think of them like the hair on the back of the horse, it's like a wild horse, and someone's riding the wild horse. And the horse is only slowing down because you're pulling on the hair, right? So, because instead of a saddle and you put the lijam on the horse and you're holding and pulling on the reins, you don't have that because it's a wild horse. So the only thing you can grab is what? The hair. And you pull on the hair and it slows down. But because it's a wild horse, mursalat means those that have been released. The ones that have been released. And what has been released? The maf'ul bihi, urfa. Their manes have been released. Now, what happens to a wild horse when you release its manes? It stampedes. It runs wherever it feels like running. No control. If there's a small animal in front of it, if there's a child in front of it, if there's a fence in front of it, it's going to break through the fence and keep going and keep going and keep going. Uncontrolled release. وَالْمُرْسَلَاتِ عُرْفًا. So this would be describing angels that are ready to destroy the rebellious nation that is defying Allah, and Allah is holding them back, not letting them attack, even though they want to. Now, why is that image important? Because Allah describes that the rest of the universe is in obedience to Allah, and so are the angels. They're in constant obedience to Allah. We are the disobedient ones on the earth. The human beings and jinns, they're the disobedient. Everybody else is in obedience to Allah. So, for example, in Surah Maryam, when somebody says Allah has taken a son, وَقَالُوا اتَّخَذَ الرَّحْمَنُ وَلَدًا, right? When they say Ar-Rahman has taken a son, then what happens to the skies? What happens to the earth? Right? The skies, takadu samawat, the skies are almost about to tear open. The earth almost wants to crack open. Why? Because the earth and the skies are in obedience to Allah, and they have no tolerance for disobedience. So the only one holding them back from cracking open, from tearing open and swallowing these disbelievers, these rebellious against Allah, the only one holding them back is Allah Himself. If that's the formula, then the angels are the same. The angels have zero tolerance for disobedience to Allah. So when they see disobedience to Allah, words of kufr, injustice, killing, fasad on the earth, what do the angels want to do? They want to bring order back and kill all of the rebellious. But Allah is holding them back, and He's comparing holding them back like a horse that wants to stampede and the reins are being held back. Then He describes, and I swear by the ones whose manes have been released. As if the angels are finally being given permission to do what they want to do. This is very similar to the description of Judgment Day. On Judgment Day, you know that the earth is going to crack open. People are going to be spit out of the earth. وَأَخْرَجَتِ الْأَرْضُ أَثْقَالَهَا وَقَالَ الْإِنسَانُ مَا لَهَا. Right? But with very interesting language in that surah, Allah says, بِأَنَّ رَبَّكَ أَوْحَى لَهَا. Because human beings will say, what's wrong with the earth? Why is it shaking like this? Why is it spitting people out of their graves? What's happening here? Right? And Allah says, because it's letting go of its burden. وَأَخْرَجَتِ الْأَرْضُ أثقالها, its burdens are being released. Why? Because the earth is designed to be obedient to Allah, but the disobedient are sitting inside its belly, and it cannot tolerate them. It wants to spit them out like an impurity. It wants to get rid of them. And human beings, when they say what's wrong with it, Allah says, بِأَنَّ رَبَّكَ أَوْحَى لَهَا. This is tadmeen. Tadmeen means the original Arabic phrase is أَوْحَى إِلَيْهَا. بِأَنَّ رَبَّكَ أَوْحَى إِلَيْهَا. But we don't see أَوْحَى إِلَيْهَا. We see what? أَوْحَى laha, the lam. What does the lam mean? Another verb is being used. It's tadmeen of two verbs, two af'al together, fi'lain. So this means أوحى إليها وأذن لها. That's what this means. He revealed to the earth and finally gave the earth permission to do what it's been wanting to do. The earth has been wanting this for a long time. The same way Jahannam wants the disbeliever. Inna Jahannama kanat mirsada. It's waiting. It says in Surah Qaf, Hal min mazid. Why is it so hungry? Because it wants to punish those who rebel against Allah. That's its act of obedience to Allah. So the same way when angels are being unleashed, when they're being let go, that is the description al-mursalati urfa. We'll go into more detail, but fal-asifati asfa is violent movement. They move quickly. They attack quickly. They're not going slowly. Right? They're just going to go and tear open. Then if this all 5 ayat are about angels, that's one opinion, right? If it's angels, it's all 5 are angels. Then the wow comes, وَالنَّاشِرَاتِ نَشْرًا. Then this is describing a different kind of scene, maybe a different group of angels. And these are the angels that are spreading out everywhere. They're spreading out everywhere. So now some people interpreted this as the continuation of the bad scene. What's the bad scene? Judgment Day. What's the bad scene? The destruction of a nation or something like that, right? And if that's the case, then they're spread all over the earth. But others describe, no, they're spreading out and delivering rizq like this. The angels are spreading out and pushing the clouds. The angels are bringing about protection. The angels are spreading out and delivering rizq wherever Allah has commanded them to deliver the rizq. And therefore, فَالْفَارِقَاتِ فَرْقًا. So they divide, meaning some lands get the rain, some lands will get the protection, some nations will be saved, some nations will be, not saved, etc., etc. They're making that division. Okay, stop. He hears my voice and he does this. It's a thing. Actually, I can't, if he's sleeping, I can't speak. He can hear anything. He can hear a truck, an ambulance, a police, no problem. He hears my voice. Ah! I hear you, boy. Okay. Anyway, so that's one way to think about what the angels are doing. We'll look at more at what the angels are doing, but I want to give you a brief overview. If we're going to think about the angels, then that's what they're doing. And then فَالْمُلْقِيَاتِ ذِكْرًا عُذْرًا أَوْ نُذْرًا would mean that the angels are the ones that deliver the revelation. They deliver the reminder. And that reminder will always either get somebody forgiven or will be enough as a warning for someone. عُذْرًا أَوْ نُذْرًا. Right? They're either going to pardon some people because of some people will come to the right way and they'll be forgiven. Other people are being warned that they're heading towards destruction. So the angels are coming for that purpose. The same way others say these ayat are referring to the winds. And if they're referring to the winds are also a creation of Allah that obeys Allah. And the winds are holding, like when you're feeling a nice breeze outside, it's because Allah is holding the horse back. And that's why it's so nice. But if Allah decides to let it go, what's going to happen? It's going to turn into a tornado, into a hurricane. It's going to destroy homes. It's going to spin out of control. It passes through neighborhoods in Oklahoma and Texas where I live, and it looks like a house was put inside of a blender. That's what, in a few seconds. Just happens in a few, and that's this is al-asifati asfa. They've been released and they're going to unleash. Then fal-fariqati farqa is the same winds that are delivering humidity, they're delivering pollen, they're delivering dust particles, they're delivering atmosphere, atmospheric pressure, they're delivering, humidity. All of the climate of the earth is moving around the earth because of the wind. In fact, the movement of the winds and the way they're spreading around, there are winds that determine the currents of the ocean. And basically all human travel, whether it's in the air or it's by sea, it's actually determined by the winds. Sailors, these large container ships, many of us are wearing clothes that came from some other part of the world. And it got here either mostly by sea, some by plane. Neither of those travels would be possible if the east wind, the Atlantic winds, these different wind currents that exist, that Allah created these highways of winds that Pilots have to study. Navigators have to study. They can't even get into the sea and go against those currents because they'll never reach where they're reaching. And all of that is a system Allah designed entirely based on the winds. And so وَالنَّاشِرَاتِ نَشْرًا. And they divide. Which direction will the wind go? And the direction of the wind will determine which nations will get fed, which nations will get rain, which nations will get the ships showing up at their shores, etc., etc. So the entire mechanism of the earth is in a sense dependent on the winds. But also behind the winds are the angels, because وَمَا يَعْلَمُ جُنُودَ رَبِّكَ إِلَّا هُوَ. So the winds are invisible, and so are the angels. And interestingly, there's a very close relationship between the winds and the angels. Allah says, فَأَرْسَلْنَا عَلَيْهِمْ رِيحًا وَجُنُودًا لَمْ تَرَوْهَا in Surah Al-Ahzab. He says Allah sent against the enemy wind and armies you couldn't see. Who's the armies we couldn't see? The angels. So the angels and the winds are actually described as very close to each other. Interestingly, Angel Jibreel, also called Ruh al-Qudus, Ruh is related to Rih. The word Ruh itself is connected to Rih. So the invisibility of it, something you can't see, but you know it's there. Something you can't see, but you know is there. And that's why the parallel between the winds and the angels is a really remarkable thing. So the fact that some Sahaba and early scholars thought this was wind, others thought it was angels, is actually seems from Allah a deliberate tactic to make people see, to make believers see the connection between these two things and how intimately connected they are to each other. Look at, for example, Allah destroys nations and He sends angels to destroy the nations. But also, Rihun Aqim. How did they get destroyed? By a rih, by a wind that came, right? Sarsarin ati, rihin sarsarin atiya, for example. So we see both in the Quran. We see the angels came to destroy and the winds came to destroy. We see both of them, right? And even بل هو عارض ممطرنا بل هو ريح, ما استعجلتم به ريح فيها عذاب أليم. Whether it's a meteor shower or it's a flood, even a flood, in the case of the flood of Nuh alayhi salam, when the rain starts coming, where are the clouds coming from? How are they getting delivered? By the rain, and perhaps, or by the wind, and perhaps behind the wind, the angels. So it's almost as if we see the engine to be the winds, now we can see that the engine behind the wind is the angels. So we kind of see them as interconnected entities. Now, this was the overview. وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَنْ حَمَلَ بَعْضَ هَذِهِ الْكَلِمَاتِ الْخَمْسَةِ عَلَى الْقُرْآنِ. There are some who interpreted all 5 of these ayat to mean the Quran itself. They felt that these ayat are referring to the Quran. Meaning, Allah has remember the word urf means good also? So, goodness has been released to the world. And you'll see other interpretations, but I'm giving you some overview of the main ideas. Goodness was released, meaning revelation is released into the world. فَالْعَاصِفَاتِ عَصْفًا. And part of that goodness is that evildoers will be destroyed. They will be dealt with quickly and conclusively. So even Fir'aun drowning is a good thing for the world. Nation of Lut being destroyed is a good thing for the world when that happened. The nation of Salih, the kuffar of Salih being destroyed is a good thing for the world. Allah says Himself, وَلَوْلَا دَفْعُ اللَّهِ النَّاسَ بَعْضَهُمْ بِبَعْضٍ لَفَسَدَتِ الْأَرْضِ. Had Allah not eliminated some people by means of another, the world would have been corrupted. The difference is when prophets come, then the disbelieving nations entirely get annihilated. But after the prophets, nations don't get annihilated, they don't go extinct, they just lose power. Power goes in the hands of somebody else. Right? That's what happens with nations. So one nation rises, then they fall, then another takes their place, then they fall, etc., 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 and power keeps shifting. Okay. وَالْمُرَادْ بِالْأَوَّلِينَ الْمَلَائِكَةِ وَالثَّلَاثَةُ الْبَاقِيَةِ آيَاتُ الْقُرْآنِ. Others also said that the first couple of ayat are about the angels. وَالْمُرْسَلَاتِ عُرْفًا فَالْعَاصِفَاتِ عَصْفًا. And the rest of them are the Quran. لِأَنَّهَا تَنْشُرُ الْحَقَّ فِي الْقُلُوبِ وَالْأَرْوَاحِ. Because the ayat of the Quran spread, because وَالنَّاشِرَاتِ نَشْرًا means they spread. So he's saying, well, the ayat spread good into the hearts of people. Right? And into the souls. وَتُفَرِّقُ بَيْنَ الْحَقِّ وَالْبَاطِلِ. Remember the ayat said, وَالْفَارِقَاتِ فَالْفَارِقَاتِ فَرْقًا. They divide. So they divide, the ayat of the Quran divide people between those who accept the truth and those who don't accept the truth. وَتُلْقِ الذِّكْرَ فِي الْقُلُوبِ وَالْأَلْسِنَةِ. And later on it says, فَالْمُلْقِيَاتِ ذِكْرَ. They drop the reminder. So they drop the reminder into the hearts and into the tongues. فَالْمُلْقِيَاتِ ذِكْرَ. By the way, ilqa, the word being used for dropping or putting down, is the same word that was used, another variation of that, for Adam alayhi salam when he made tawbah. فَتَلَقَّى آدَمُ مِنْ رَبِّهِ كَلِمَاتٍ فَتَابَ عَلَيْهِ. He came into contact with words. Basically, Allah did ilqa of those words, and He did talaqi of those words. That's the converse relationship between those two words. Allah dropped those words, sprinkled those words on him, and He caught them, and He used them. And those were the words of istighfar, رَبَّنَا ظَلَمْنَا أَنفُسَنَا. Now, so I'm going to read some commentaries, and I'll translate them, because I thought these were valuable, so I included them. This is not to make you feel bad if you don't know Arabic. But if you feel bad, I feel kind of good. Okay. فَكَأَنَّهُ وَاللَّهُ أَعْلَمُ قِيل. It is as though, Allah knows best, it is as though it's being said, يا محمد إني أرسلت الملك إليك بالوحي الذي هو عنوان كل سعادة وفاتحة كل خير. It is as though Allah is saying, O Muhammad, I have sent to you the angel, وَالْمُرْسَلَاتِ عُرْفًا, because Jibreel alayhi salam doesn't come alone, he comes with an entire legion of angels, right? مُطَاعٍ ثَمَّ أَمِينٍ. So they're all been released. I've sent an angel to you with revelation, which is the source and the opening of all happiness, and opens the doors of all good. ولكن لا تطمع في أن ننشر ذلك الأمر في الحال. But don't worry about spreading this word everywhere right now. Because Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam receives the Quran, he wants to see it spread everywhere, right? ولكن لا بد من الصبر وتحمل المشقة. But right now you have to be patient, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and you have to bear with the difficulties that are coming. ثم إذا جاء وقت النصرة أجعل دينك ظاهرا منتشرا في شرق العالم وغربه. And when time comes, I will make sure that the deen, nashr is done of it. Like the angels will make sure that the deen is delivered and spread everywhere that it needs to spread, kind of like the rain spreading all over the world. وعند ذلك الانتشار يظهر الفرق. And when this spreading happens, then the division will become clear. What's the division? فالفارقات فرقا, right? So he's looking at the sequence of these ayat in this way. فتصير الأديان الباطلة ضعيفة ساقطة. So the weak religions of the world, their weakness will become clear and they shall fall. وَدِينُكَ هُوَ الدِّينُ الْحَقِّ ظَاهِرًا غَالِبًا. And your deen will become obviously the dominant deen. وَهُنَالِكَ يُظْهِرُ ذَلِكَ اللَّهُ عَلَى الْأَلْسِنَةِ. And that's when Allah will make this deen apparent on the tongues. وَفِي الْمَحَارِيبِ. And in places where people pray. وَعَلَى الْمَنَابِرِ. And on the pulpits. وَيَصِيرُ الْعَالَمْ مَمْلُوءًا مِنْ ذِكْرِ اللَّهِ. And the world will be filled with the remembrance of Allah. فَالْمُلْقِيَاتِ ذِكْرًا. So now he's looking at from, this is Imam Razi, I believe. He's looking at the opening ayat. وَالْمُرْسَلَاتِ عُرْفًا. The angels came and delivered the message. فَالْعَاصِفَاتِ عَصْفًا. This is going to be like a violent, attack on society. They're going to feel the strength of this religion. Then when nashirati nashra, it will spread. Right now you have to go through some tough asf times, but after that the deen is going to spread and humanity will be divided, and it will deliver the reminder into millions and billions of hearts, and it will become a means for them to be forgiven, or it will serve as enough of a warning for them. So now a little bit about these words, inshallah. أرسلت الطائر من يدي. So I told you about irsal, to release. When you let a bird go, it's actually called irsal. When you let it just goes wherever it goes. I said rusla, I misspoke, it was risla, sahlatu sayd. When you let a camel go and it moves wherever it wants to move, that camel is called a risla. A risla. So if you're like, my baby just runs around everywhere, he's a risla. Okay, so rasil al-shi'r kana tawil. If you let your hair go, like a hippie, then your hair is rasil. Wa arsala al-shay. أرسل الكلاب على الصيد. So that when they release the hounds, the dogs to hunt, right? They let them go and they go and attack. That's also called irsal. And والإرسال يقابل الإمساك. This is the opposite of holding back. Now that word is important because it is as if in the word there's kinaya, that Allah is holding certain things back. He's holding the winds from attacking. He's holding the angels back from destroying. But they want to, as we were saying. So that's captured inside that word. Now the word urf. So the word urf, urf al-fars wa dabba sha'ru unuqihima. Any animal with the neck hair, that's actually called its urf. Urf al-dik rishu unuqihi wal-hana al-hamra fawqa ra'sihi. You've seen a rooster has the red punk rocker thing on top? You know what I'm talking about, the red thing? I got a picture later. I'll show you. Okay. So that thing is also called a urf. That's also called a urf because it's on the back of the head. والتعريف لأنه يعرف بصفاته. That's why the word ta'rif is when you recognize something by its most apparent quality. The thing that sticks out on the horse is the hair, or the rooster's red, the thing that it has. والمعرفة والعرفان إدراك الشيء هو أخص من العلم ضد الإنكار. So معرفة is when you recognize something very, very well. And of course, this word is used for anything that you can recognize intellectually, but also if you can see the good in something. The good in something is obvious, it's ma'rifah, right? Everybody knows what ma'rifah is and what ma'ruf is. So when Allah says, يَأْمُرُونَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَيَنْهَوْنَ عَنِ الْمُنْكَرِ, it means everybody knows that killing is bad. Everybody knows that children are innocent. Everybody, that's not something you have to convince somebody. You already know. And that's why it's called ma'ruf. It's all too obvious. As they say, أظهر من الشمس, right? Now, if it is the angels that are being released, then they're released with revelation. They deliver revelation to the world. They also deliver their help, their nusra to the world. They also release punishment. Allah releases punishment through them. And all of that would be urf. Meaning the revelation is good, or if I'm taking the meaning of good, the support of the angels is good, and even the punishment that the angels deliver is also good. It's part of the good that society, that the world is being saved from a cancer like Fir'aun. That's in itself is a good thing, right? Now the other thing, I told you urf has a third meaning. So it was good, it was the back of the head, and it was a third meaning. What was that? You remember? Packs of animals, right? So كعرف الضبع إذا تألبوا. So it's a pack of hyenas when they attack together. ويقال جاءوا عرفا واحدا. They came as one group. When people come as one group, they're called عرفا واحدا. والمرسلات عرفا could then mean when angels come all together. When angels come all together. It's not one angel. An army, a battalion of them launches. We know that revelation angels also come in a group. Jibreel alayhi salam comes with a group. But even we find other stories like the story of Lut alayhi salam. A group of them came down, right? On Judgment Day, groups of angels are going to come down. وَجَاءَ رَبُّكَ وَالْمَلَكُ صَفًّا صَفًّا. They'll come down in groups and groups. Notice the word al-mursalat, and thanks to Ustad Abs, one of my balagha teachers, explained this really beautifully. You notice the alif ta in all of these oaths? وَالْمُرْسَلَاتِ عُرْفًا فَالْعَاصِفَاتِ عَصْفًا. It is actually understood jama'at. يعني jama'at al-malaika al-mursalat. So the word jama'at is understood by the ancient Arabs. Groups and groups of angels that have been released. Or bunches and bunches of winds that have been released. It's not just one light breeze, it's the whole thing that has been released, right? And this would be وَالْمُرْسَلَاتِ عُرْفًا. Okay. Now, ويحتمل أن يكون المعنى العرف الذي هو النقيض النكرة فإن هؤلاء الملائكة إن كانوا بعثوا للرحمة فهذا المعنى فيهم ظاهر. Urfa could mean good, and if they are coming down, if angels are being released to deliver goodness and mercy, then the meaning is obvious. وإن كانوا لأجل العذاب فذلك العذاب وإن لم يكن معروفا للكفار فإنه معروف للأنبياء والمؤمنين الذين انتقم الله لهم منهم. And even if it's coming to destroy the disbeliever, it is something to support the believers, it's there to support the prophets, and that itself is a good. Now we get to al-asifat. فَالْعَاصِفَاتِ عَصْفًا, the second ayah. Well, again, we're not contemplating yet, we're doing tafseer. Contemplating is what do we get from this, right? That's the next step. Inshallah, we'll get there. So al-asf. ما على حب الحنطلة. So